find a grade 3 triple negative invasive ductal carcinoma of the breast, and it was a 1.8 centimeter mass. I'm very sorry to give you these kind of news, and I know this is very hard to hear, but we're going to try to fight this as much as we can, okay? I'm so sorry.
Strong mama would get weaker by the day. She didn't want to see it, didn't know what to do. She wanted to show her mama she could be brave too. A bright pink ribbon with her mama's name, saying, "Be strong, mama, you're so brave." On her right shoulder is where it stings, so when she gets older she'll remember the day when she said, "This is for you, mama. What do you think? I'm right here with you. I proudly wear my pink ink."
Fighting. You are so strong. Like, I think it's perfect. Your last name, Warman, because you're like a warrior.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yes, it's beautiful. Like, that's like poetry. So I think, it's wonderful that you're here, and I would like you to kind of tell your story.
Well, on May of 2020, I found a small lump on my left side, about right in this area, and didn't pay any attention to it. I let it go. A couple weeks into it, it started to get a little bit bigger, so my husband finally made me go see my OB. When I got in to see him, he was like, "Oh, it's probably nothing, but I'm going to send you to a breast specialist anyways, just to make sure, just to ease everybody's mind." So I went into the breast specialist, and they did a biopsy through like a guided MRI, ultrasound. They did all that fun, and then I got a pathology report, and to make sure I wasn't carrying the HER2 gene or if it was in my system. On July 1st of last year, I had a follow-up to go over my biopsy results, and unfortunately we didn't have a babysitter for my youngest. So my husband was out in the car, and I walk in, and all the nurses were like, "Well, where's your husband?" I was like, "He's in the car. We're not bringing my son in here," because obviously he couldn't because of all the stuff going on with COVID too. So when we sat down, they sat me down in the room, and my doctor or the nurse walked in and goes, "Well, where's your husband?" I'm like, "Well, he's in the car." And he's like, "Well, maybe you should get him in here, and I'll have a nurse go wait out in the car with your son." And I'm like, "Well, you guys promised me it wasn't anything serious, so let's just go over these results. It's fine." And so then the doctor came in, and the doctor's like, "Well, where's Brandon?" And I'm like, "He's in the car." Like, I don't know, like I had to tell the story like 5 times. And she's like, "Are you sure you don't want him in here?" And I'm like, "You guys literally said that it was nothing, like let's just go over these results." And she's like, "Okay." So she sat down, and she looked at me, and she said, "You have a grade 3 invasive ductal carcinoma." That's all I heard. From there, I really don't remember the conversation. I just kind of sat there, just mind blown, because I was reassured that it was nothing. And so she asked me if I wanted her to go talk to my husband, and I said yes. And then I just sat there, and she had my nurse navigator come in, and she had this huge pink bag, and it had all this information about breast cancer and treatments and how to talk to your children. And then after talking to her for a little bit, she walked me out to the parking lot, and she walked me out to the parking lot, and I just looked at my husband and his face, and he was just like white as a ghost. And he just kind of looked at me. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I think so." Like, I didn't know how to react. And so when I sat in the driver's side, the doctor left, and we kind of just sat there for a minute, and he's like, "Well, what do we do?" And I'm like, "Well, we got to tell somebody, because I didn't know how to do this." So I called my brother, immediately, like as we were driving, and I left him a voicemail to let him know that I had cancer. Well, actually, I made my husband tell him because I don't think I could have said it yet. And then from there, we drove straight to my mom's house, and it was kind of all just a blur. I just remember her staring at me, and she just looked so scared. And I still, till this day, I don't think I've actually sat down and like cried about it, like really at all. Like I get teary-eyed, but I think it's just because I know there's other people out there that are going through the same thing, and I can understand what they feel. So I started chemo. I actually had a bilateral mastectomy on August 17th. And then I started chemo right after that. They inserted my port. About 2 weeks later is when I started. I did the AC, which is known as the Red Devil. You're only allowed to have it once in your lifetime. That one is the hardest. I got that bi-weekly for 4 weeks, 8 weeks altogether. And then I had to do Taxol weekly for 12 weeks. Lost all my hair. Couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. It was probably like the worst time of my life. Couldn't work, couldn't do anything. I actually tried working and I passed out while doing a client because I just couldn't stop myself. I needed to feel normal. And right before the last couple of treatments, I noticed another lump, and I brought it to my oncologist's attention, and he checked it out, and he looked at it, and he's like, well, we'll get it checked out. So then I talked to my breast specialist, and she's like, it's nothing. It's probably just a stitch granuloma from the bilateral mastectomy. After a couple of days, she then put me on antibiotics because it wasn't going away. So I went back in, and she was like, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. It's just a cyst or something. It's not, you can't get cancer while on chemo. And I didn't believe it. So I found a new breast doctor, and I went in for my reconstruction surgery and to get my port removed because we thought we were done. My plastic surgeon at that time was a general surgeon, so he did a cold swab, cold freeze biopsy. I can't remember what it was called. But he did a biopsy on that spot and woke me up about 45 minutes into the surgery, and it was on April 1st, and this is how crude my family is. When they woke me up, my husband couldn't even look at me because he felt like he was about to let me down, and my aunt's the nurse there, so she fought to be my nurse that day. And I kind of looked at everybody, and my plastic surgeon and my new breast surgeon, and everybody was just kind of standing around me, and I'm like, well, and I looked at my husband, and I was like, how do my new boobs look? Oh! And he just that his face went white, and he walked out of the room. And my aunt came over to me, and she's like, Allie, you have cancer again. And I'm like, you guys are funny. I get that it's April 1st.
Fools. Oh
I get it. And I understand, we're that family that jokes, and we can be, crazy.
But that's a bit much.
I'm like, but seriously, how do my new boobs look? And that's when my doctor stepped up, and she was like, no, unfortunately, you have stage 2 breast cancer again. And from there we did 30 rounds of radiation, which was the one thing that I never wanted to do. I thought radiation would kill me. I was so scared of it. After I was done with radiation, I realized that it wasn't as hard as the rest of it. And then they wanted to start me on an oral chemo this time because the chemo that I already had, the AC, you can only get once in a lifetime. And the Taxol, my cancer grew while I was on Taxol, so they won't give that to me again. So they started me on Xeloda, which is an oral pill. But after 6 doses, so I did 6 pills a day, 3 pills twice a day. So 6 altogether every day. And after my 6th dose, around 2 o'clock in the morning, I started getting really bad chest pains, and I ended up having a heart attack. They called them mini heart attacks, and I had to get a heart catheter, so they made me stop that immediately. And right now we're just waiting for me to start my new IV chemo treatment all over again, and hopefully this time it works.